All right, looks like we got everybody here and it's 7 o'clock, so I will call to order this meeting of the Newberg School District Board of Directors. We have, sorry, just one second here, fairly light agenda this evening. Let's go ahead and do the flag salute before we get started. And I again forgot to ask anyone, is there anyone who would like to volunteer to lead us in the flag salute tonight? All right, looks like it's me. If you could all mute so that way we don't have a lot of talking over each other, that would be awesome. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So we'll have our public comments, and I believe we have one public comment this evening. We'll move into board comments, superintendent comments, then the consent agenda. We'll be hearing from Dr. Morlock and Greg on a bond update, which is an exciting update, this meeting specifically. We'll also hear from Dr. Morlock regarding school in-person update. And then we'll hear from both of our ad hoc committees, the start time and the equity committee, on updates. Go into the OSBA planning for the conference coming up this weekend to help ensure that we have optimal coverage for the sessions. And then talk a little bit about the OSBA Board of Director Chair elections. So without further ado, let's go ahead and move into public comments. And I believe we have Lily with us tonight. Also, while Lily's getting switched over to the panelist screen, just want to remind everybody, thank you so much for coming. Even if you're not giving public comments, it's great that we have lots of public input and communication. And in giving public comments, we appreciate your time. We also ask that you refrain from talking about any personnel and also refrain from speaking to board members' character and just speaking to action. Okay, Lily, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Should I start my video?
Awesome. Yeah, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Perfect. Hi. Good evening. My name is Lily Green, and I am a senior at Newberg High School. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the student body of Newberg to address pertinent social injustices occurring at Newberg High School. As you all know, these past few weeks have been quite strenuous on everyone, and there are specific instances and people who need to be acknowledged. First of all, I would like to address the issues regarding the Trump rally that occurred on NHS's campus in October. As Newberg High School's account at Newberg Nation explained, it was not sanctioned and legal action is being taken against the organizers of such event. Myself and other students at Newberg High School have no issue with a political rally in Newberg. However, it was the event happening at the school, as well as the other illegal activities that occurred on the school premises, that are the issue. There are numerous accounts of the rally attendees openly carrying firearms on school grounds. As I am sure you are all aware of, this is highly illegal. The students at Newberg High School are now asking that the district fine these offenders and prosecute them accordingly. It's quite upsetting for this to be happening at our school, especially with the prior threats of violence that have occurred over the years. Many students, myself included, now feel unsafe when on campus for school functions. Given that students are currently attending school functions, this is an issue that cannot be not addressed. Pressing forward, I would like to bring the school board's attention to the slurs that have occurred or are occurring at Newberg High School. Minority students are being verbally abused by their peers due to their culture and their skin tone. LGBTQ+ students are being called names because of who they choose to love and how they choose to identify themselves. Even special needs students have been mocked for their disabilities. This must end now. Hate ends now. If you can all remember back to 2019, a superintendent student advisory committee was created at Newberg High School. It allowed administration to work with students to create resolutions for issues that impacted all NHS students. I'm proposing that we continue this idea in 2020. I, Lily Green, as the president of Key Club, as well as Marfrida Alvarez Rojas, the president of METRA, and Lexi New, the president of the Gender Sexuality Alliance, are working towards creating a coalition containing a representative of every club that deals with social issues. We are trying to bring about a resource for the school board or administration to reach out to in order to have more student input when making decisions that impact the student body. Finally, students are proud to call Newberg their home, and I have made so many incredible memories at Newberg High School. Myself and many others could not imagine growing up anywhere else. However, it is our duty as the youth of Newberg to speak out against injustices facing our community in order to facilitate a more loving and prosperous city. Thank you all for listening, and please address our issues.
Thank you, Lily, for joining us tonight. Okay, I believe that's all the public comment we had this evening. So we can move into board comments. I'll go ahead and just call you as you appear on my screen. Dave, do you have any comments this evening? Oh, you're muted.
I had a couple, just a little bit there. Last week or 2 weeks ago at our 27th meeting, I thought I caught it, but then I didn't understand until I went back, and it is great having YouTube. You know, you can go back and listen to everything. Director Woodruff left out 2 words that are pretty important in our Pledge of Allegiance, and I was just wondering why. Under God was left out. And then a letter came to the board, and this is a person I have worked with and have a lot of admiration for in our district. So I'm going to respond to those comments without using a name, if that's okay. A little bit, this might be at Dr. Morlock, but it was in the letter. Dr. Morlock is my one employee. I don't have 2, only have 1. He handles these matters like the rally. Dr. Morlock communicates all matters to the board. His first response was a general update, not many hard facts, because he was on the fly on this. We had a couple more updates. As the board meeting came on October 27th, many facts were still up and down and not completely clear. I still think Dr. Joe did a good job. It's kind of a lose-lose situation to be part of in his role. I was curious. I had 3 questions, and I can ask Dr. Joe later. I can send these in an email. But I was concerned about who communicated they were threatened. And if it did happen, then the police, I'm sure, were notified and arrest should have been made, yes or no. Oregon is an open carry state. Did the people at the rally commit a crime or break Oregon laws? Yes or no? And then C, part of this response to this person is my opinion is just an opinion. And what are the facts? And again, I think Dr. Joe, I appreciate what you did on the rally. I don't always agree with everything, but that's not my role. And I just thought he did a good job. So I hope that clears that up. To this person, in paragraph number 8, your sentence, our school should not have even a hint of partisanship. I agree totally. But at our last meeting, one of our board members blatantly commented about the NHS rally, and it was a complete partisan speech that left zero doubt about the board members' political views, and nothing was said by anybody on the board. So if we're gonna have this kind of attitude in our school district, we need to have this attitude everywhere. And that did happen. You just go back and watch the YouTube. It was completely a political view. I'm committed to our schools being a safe space for everyone. I agree with you again. For students, staff in our schools, how safe is it to speak or vote openly? If you are Republican or more conservative, it's not very safe at all. I know I've been attacked repeatedly. Safe, not so much. Safe goes both ways. So when we talk about this, we have to talk about everybody in our community. I know not everybody's going to like these numbers, but we have 22 polling stations in Yamhill County and Newberg. 13 voted for President Trump, 9 for Vice President Biden. 52% of the vote of our community voted for President Trump, 48% for Vice President Biden. Not everybody always agrees with me or you. I've said this many times, we need to represent everybody in our community. This last statement is, I want to be perfectly clear on this. I have worked my entire career in Newberg. I give up in a very good coaching career to come here and be a volunteer on a school board. We don't get paid for this stuff. I have lived in Newberg for 57 years, spent all my time going to school here. My kids went to school here, worked 20 years at the high school. With all that said, please don't tell me you care more about the Newberg School District than I do, because you don't. I love this town. I love the schools. We probably just have a different way of going about it. You want exceptional schools. I agree. We just have different views on how to get there. So why don't we have exceptional schools right now? COVID-19 is a big one. It's really hurting. But in my 17 months on the school board, and this is probably getting right at you guys, everybody in this board right now, I feel like for me, we spent all of our time. First, it was the hard work of the policies. And Bob, you were right. It takes a lot of work. But since then, it's been no talk about exceptional schools. It's George Floyd, anti-racist resolutions, bonds, equity, equality, being a social needs district, being a social justice warriors, political rallies that we don't like, COVID-19, computers, hotspots, and feelings. We have spent almost zero time discussing how our schools should be exceptional school district. I'm looking forward to those conversations, and this is my response to that person who sent a letter into me and the rest of the board. So that's all I have, Brittany.
Thanks, Dave. I would encourage you to reach out to that school board member and have some good conversation and dialogue for better understanding.
This letter wasn't from that person.
No, you just mentioned a school board member in there, and I just
Right.
thought it could be a good idea to have some good conversations between whoever
Sure.
that is that you mentioned.
Okay.
Okay, Rebecca, do you have any comments this evening?
Yes, I want to give a big shout out to the bond steering committee who proposed the package we just passed. They held 8 meetings, and it was 33 members of the community, a wide cross section of people, of business community members, of parents, staff. It was a great working together. We had our difficulties, our differences, but we worked through to a good package to help provide good quality buildings for our kids for the future. I also want to thank the community of Newberg for passing this bond issue in such a dire time. They put their future of the students in the top of their priorities, and I want to say that we appreciate the trust they've put into the school district and to the board to make sure that these funds are used properly and used to the best of our ability. I also want to thank Joe and Greg particularly for the hard work that they have done to educate the public on the bond issues. And in line of everything else you've done this last few months, you had a bond issue to educate people on, and you did a terrific job. I want to thank Brandy and Bob and the PAC committee for all the hard work that was done. And I'm just very proud. I was so happy last Tuesday night. It was really inspiring to feel that the city of Newberg and Dundee was behind our school district, and that shows the hard work we have done. Yes, the bond was part of making sure our school district is going to be an excellent school district in the future. So thank you so much for everybody's help.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. Inez, do you have any public comments this evening?
Yeah, again, a shout out to everybody that worked really hard on the bond. I myself, hung some door signs, and it feels great to see such a victory for our students and the families that will cross the halls in our buildings. So thank you to everybody that voted. Thank you to everybody that was out there supporting in one way or another, financially, with ideas. Every little bit helped. So thank you.
Thank you. Brian, do you have any board comments this evening?
I do not.
Okay. Ron, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I do have a little bit here. And I wrote these comments before I knew anything about what Dave was going to say. So it's not really a direct response to Dave, although in a way it'll seem like it, I think. If I can get the right thing up here. Hang on a second. Ah, phooey. I'm having trouble here, sorry.
That's okay. We can come back to you. I can go to Bob.
I got it.
Oh, you got it. Okay.
Before I was appointed to the board in January of 2012, I had an interview with all the sitting board members. One of them asked me whether I had a particular agenda, and I said I didn't, except for one thing. I hope to help the district and its staff develop a more entrepreneurial spirit. I wanted and still want Newberg to be known as a remarkable, innovative public school district, measured in part by getting more kids from other districts transferring in than local district students transferring out. I believe we've made progress on this, and I have several examples here, like the creation of the Shehalem Online Academy, which operated for years quietly under the radar, but was there when we needed it coming into this year. The ahead of schedule provision of computers to every student on a 1-to-1 ratio, spearheaded by Luke Neff and his crew, which put us in position to do some amazing things when the virus came and we needed a lot of computers out in our student body. The collaborative approach to bargaining we've enjoyed with our unions, which paved the way for high levels of cooperation, even in the current crisis. We upgraded our financial management policies to provide for reserves, which have been critical to maintaining confident operations this year, and made it easier for the voters to trust us with bond funds. Plus the upgraded Catalyst system program, the Tiger Manufacturing Project, the dual language program, the extensive cooperative arrangements we have with so many community entities, and I think there are many more projects I've left out. But we need to keep going. COVID has disrupted our enrollments. This creates both risk and opportunity for the school district. As Greg reported last month, we are drawing some students from outside the district specifically for the quality of our programs, which is a good sign, but we have lost more students than that to other districts. Our market share has shrunk, if you want to put it that way, so far. Here's the opportunity we have though. COVID has forced us to adapt. Since we'll be adapting already anyway, let's use this window of flexibility to adapt in long overdue ways. As our election just confirmed, America is deeply divided into two almost equal camps, and so is our school district. I swear I wrote that well before I heard anything from Dave. The divisions are many, but the fundamental issue right now is how America can deliver on its vision, first articulated almost 250 years ago and still incomplete, of treating every person as being created equal. This is why I believe our equity work is our next and biggest chance to be successful entrepreneurs, to get this issue right, to set our district apart by how exceptionally well we serve all our students. People are sensitized to the equity issue now. It has become a material factor in where they send their students. Many people see this as a zero-sum issue, that any progress towards better conditions for historically underserved groups has to come at the cost of worse conditions for other students. This does not have to happen if we do this right. All our students lag behind their potential because of systemic barriers that apply to only some of them. If we remove those barriers, the students thereby liberated to excel at the rate of their potential will push the previously more privileged ones. Teachers will be able to go faster through the material, and a higher achieving student body will compound that effect by accelerating each other. So we'll get more achievement bang for every salary dollar. A school without barriers to any student's success will add to every student's success. If we achieve this kind of robust equality of opportunity, our schools can offer every student the kind of exceptional experience we were hoping for. The word exceptional was in there yesterday when my first draft, Dave. Word exceptional experience we're hoping for, with higher achievement in every group and achievement gaps radically narrowed or entirely gone. That will appeal to every family from whatever ethnic, racial, or economic background. Fewer of our local students will seek their educations elsewhere, and more from elsewhere will ask to join us. As I've said several times, the increased diversity of our board membership, extending our range in several directions, is a huge asset for the kind of out-of-the-box thinking we need to do. And that diversity in our board happened just in time. We will need the contributions of every perspective represented on this board to have the best chance of getting to the win-win equity outcome I am sure is possible. Thank you. A copy of that I'm sent to Greg. I'll have it sent to him in 5 minutes, and then to all the board members, and it can go in the minutes.
Thank you, Ron. Can I interject here? I have a message from our translators. So it's a good opportunity to remind folks that we are translating these live into Spanish. And if you would like to access that, you can click the interpretation button in your settings and choose Spanish language. The interpreters have also asked board members if we could slow down the speech a little bit, it would be helpful to them.
Thank you for that reminder. I need to get in the habit of doing that first thing in the introduction to the meeting. So thank you, Greg. We'll get there. And thank you, Ron. Bob, are you prepared to have any public comments tonight? Not public, board comments.
Yes, I just want to, share in the congratulations and the excitement in the seeing the bond passed. I think it really speaks highly to the work that our teachers, our staff, our administrators have done over the years, and the hope and trust that the community has placed in that hard work that folks have put in. I'm very excited to see, as this bond comes to fruition, a new Dundee Elementary, the health clinic at the high school, the STEM work that'll be done at the high school, the upgrades that'll be done at all schools in flexible learning spaces. It's going to do a lot of good to help make this the excellent district that we all want it to be. I also want to apologize to everybody. Apparently I left out 2 words when I did the Pledge of Allegiance last time. No intent, I just forgot about it. Well, Dave, I think it's discourteous to play gotcha. You had 2 weeks when you could have reached out to me personally, and I would have shared my apology with all. You do, Dave, and I'll apologize to folks for omitting those 2 words inadvertently.
Thank you, Bob. I just want to echo everybody's statements regarding the bond. It was just amazing to see the turnout of our community in support of this district. And I don't think that is in any small part to the work of Joe and the work of Luke, our Director of Community Partnerships. When I was asking various businesses or community leaders for endorsements or financial support, they were more than willing to support the PAC. And we received incredibly generous donations and a lot of really great endorsements. And, that takes years. That's years in the making. And I want to say thank you to the district staff for creating that environment. And also to kind of echo what Ron said, I want to say thank you to the board. It was because of our policy changes regarding our ending fund balance that we took a few years back that we were able to go to the community and say, here's our financial record. Here is, how seriously we're taking the importance of having a very stable, stably funded school district. And that's because of the board work. So I want to thank fellow board members who were on the board at that time who helped make that happen. And, the bond's not over. It's still, I've not been part of a bond before, but from what I hear, the next 3 to 5 years will be full of bond work. So I'm excited to hear the update on that from Joe. So it's not over yet. All right, Joe, with that, are you ready for superintendent comments?
I am, thank you. I first would like to thank everyone who turned out to vote last week, regardless of how you voted or for whom you voted. Having that kind of turnout is really what we should expect in every election. I was happy to see so many eligible voters go to the polls, or, at least in Oregon, send in your ballots. Not having a stamp this year might have been, what tipped the balance, but I think it was really important for us to remember that. It is the most patriotic thing you can do, making your voice heard and making your vote count. That actually is the embodiment of liberty and freedom, and that's something that we enjoy, and I think it's something that we should all remember to exercise every single time. Of course, I do want to thank the community for supporting the bond election. That's going to power the current and next generation of students and staff, and replace and updated facilities using some modernized equipment. The impact on our community will be far greater than the sum of the dollars, frankly. Thank you again for putting your trust in us. I know that there are people who did not vote for it and people who did vote for it. But I just know that this is going to be something that's going to be great for our students and staff and families from now and then far into the future. I wanted to echo Rebecca's comments about the bond steering committee, so I won't go back over and do it again, but thank you, Rebecca. You highlighted them, a large group of community members who came together to develop that package. I do specifically want to thank our PAC committee members. They were small and mighty, but they were a huge support for the campaign. I'm very grateful for all the dedicated time and energy that they put into this. They're helping educate and inspire voters to support the bond. All the members of the PAC, but especially our chairs, Lydia Kyler and AJ Schwantz. Autumn Foster, of course, for huge contributions, Emily Garrick Steenson, Carr Biggerstaff, Brittany Magallanes, and I'm sure many, many others, and you can write me angry emails if I've forgotten your name or left off the list, but I did want to thank those people specifically because I know that was a very tight crew that did a lot of work. I want to thank the school board members who put in the time and energy to educate our voters. I know many of you did some door hangers and did some other things, and every little bit helped, especially Chair Penner, who did her school by school videos with principals. Those were great, and we actually heard from a lot of folks they really enjoyed those videos. So thank you, Chair Penner. And then finally, on the passage of the bond, I do want to thank all the staff involved during our process. The things that nobody sees are the ones behind the scenes that we meet weekly, and we're doing those weekly meetings, and we're also adding that on to our regular cabinet meetings and lots of people involved. And so there's a lot of other things there are a lot of other things that happen in the background. I want to thank all of my staff, but especially Greg Koskela for our communications. Long days, long nights, several ways to get messaging out and getting all those things, wrangling different folks to get the messages correct and get them out factually. I know it's a huge amount of work on top of the work he already does. He tries to take no credit, but he does an amazing amount of work. And I want to acknowledge that publicly. And I'm slowing down and pausing for our interpreters because I should know better. So I apologize. Disculpe, por favor. Yo debería saber hacerlo, pero no estaba pensando. Okay, and then finally, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge tomorrow's national holiday, which is Veterans Day. I hope that in the time that we have away from work and school, each one of us takes a moment to reflect upon the sacrifices our veterans and their families have provided so that we should remain safe both here in this land and abroad. It is no small ask to request that they put their lives on the line to defend the Constitution of the United States or to carry out orders in some faraway land. I'm fortunate to be part of the Noon Rotary Club, which has in its ranks several veterans. Walter Want was highlighted in last week's Newberg graphic. I think probably many of you saw that. It's a fitting portrait of a man and his adventures that until 2010 could not even be discussed in public because of their classified nature. In his time serving in the 60s, it wasn't until almost 40 years later that he could speak of what kinds of challenges and adventures he was involved in. As I read the piece about Walter, I ruminated on the fact that there are literally thousands and thousands like Walter. Well, maybe not exactly like Walter, but certainly people who have given, who are now giving, or who have given their very best to defend and protect and may never get to tell their stories. So please reach out to a veteran you know. I know all of you know at least one and probably several, and thank him or thank her for their service. We owe so much to them and to the sacrifices they've made on our behalf. thank you. That's all I have tonight for comments.
I don't see Walter in attendance, but I'll be sure to point out that lovely tribute to him tomorrow in Rotary, 'cause
Yeah,
that was really great.
Yeah, he's got
Well, I
great
haven't met
stories. If you
Walter.
ever get a chance to speak with him, he's got great stories and things that he can finally talk about. But pretty amazing human being.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's move on to consent agenda. And I would entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Oh, Rebecca, you're muted. I see you moving your lips though.
I second.
The motion and the second, is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, passes unanimously. All right, back to Dr. Morlock for a bond update.
Okay, bring this up. All right, thank you. So the good news is we've passed the bond, and the other good news is we have lots and lots and lots and lots of things to do in the next several steps. I'm going to give you kind of a brief overview of what's happening, some details in between, and then of course answer the questions that I have answers to. I did want to let you know we have been in contact with other districts and some council for some support on the next steps. We did meet with Piper Sanders, who has come and spoken in front of the board a few times, Carol Samuels and Alex Bowers. They are the underwriters who helped provide the documentation for us during the forecasting of the costs to the taxes and things like that. So they will, along with us, they'll be bringing together a resolution for our December 8th meeting to authorize the bond sale. Remember that the voters do not actually tell you how much you sell the bonds or sell the bonds for. They provide an authorization of an up to amount, not to an exceed amount, right? So that's an important thing to remember. So the resolution on December 8th will authorize those bond sale. We will have it in the packet for your review. It will be relatively detailed. So please, if you have those questions, if you can get them to us ahead of time so we can make sure we can answer all of those at the meeting or via email or both. I think those are important to have. The sale will happen in mid-February. Funding would be available then in about March. We have several things to do to get that ready after the resolution. So you have 45 days from the certification of the vote to pass the resolution to authorize the sale of the bonds. We will be building all of our disclosures, getting a bond rating update, back to the comment about the ending fund balance. That actually really does help in determining what kind of a rating we get. We have several parts of the due diligence, something called a preliminary official statement, which is like a prospectus on the private side. So we build a whole thing about all of our finances and all things about the district. And then some cash flow summary documents, which are basically how we project to spend the money that we are proposing over the course of the timeline of the bond and how many years it'll take us. And so there are lots of those things that have to get detailed out. That doesn't mean we'll be doing all the design of the buildings. We'll be using cost estimates and things like that, but there is quite a bit of work to build a cash flow summary because that has to get to our bond council before moving forward with the sale of the bond. Our next major steps, of course, are then to hire a district architecture firm who would oversee the entire package or possibly portions of the package. We're finalizing the decision about overseeing the whole thing. Often, I think actually Newberg in the past has done that, and many districts do choose a single firm who may then hire other smaller firms to do smaller projects, and they oversee the vast majority of that from the architecture side and design phase. We will be distributing, that's a public RFP process. It goes through a pretty stringent thing. There are lots of rules and law around how those are done. And then we will go through a process and bring that forward to the board after the recommendation is made. After your architecture firm's on board, we will go out then under their guidance to seek what's called a construction project management firm. So CPM, there are multiple firms that do construction project management. We are still determining whether we would hire an employee who's the owner's representative or seek a firm, CPM firm, to be the owner's representative, who's the person who works between both architects and the folks who actually do the construction. And those people are critical. So we'll finalize that after we've brought an architecture firm on board. And then we'll be planning the projects for the upcoming summer. So we'll do, of course, some things that are done during the summertime that you can't do while people are in buildings, things like roofing projects and others. And some of that determination, of course, we've made after bringing an architecture firm on board and developing a timeline for the projects as they go out the door. They also would be developing the process for public engagement, design development. All of the preliminary meetings we'd be having, of course, with the city of Dundee and the city of Newberg to talk over the kind of the projects to prepare them as well, because lots of things go through a permitting process. So just helping them understand the scope so they're ready for as those things come in. So lots of things happening here in the next couple of months. The critical first step, of course, is the December 8th, when we would have the process for authorizing the resolution to sell the bonds in February. I'm going to pause there and see if there are any questions about some of the next steps, and I'll give you all the details that I have at this point.
I have a question. You're making it sound like we're going to sell all the bonds at once in February, that there's only one bond sale. Is that the case? I thought we might be sort of doing a rolling basis, selling what we need now and then selling more later. So how does that work?
Right. So there are two ways to do it. So you can either sell the entire amount. Remember that we do have to expend 80% of those within the 3 years, right? So you can't just sell the bonds and then just keep the money and do other things with it. I mean, hold on to it and then wait and then do your bond projects over time. And so part of our determination, that's working with our bond counsel and the underwriters to determine the scope of the projects. We will work with some consultants to figure out the depth of those. If you think about the projects of the 141 million that we've outlined, your big projects are Dundee Elementary replacement, the Edwards remodel and cafeteria replacement, and CTE and science things at the high school. Those are the three, I would say, large projects. But those can all happen in parallel because they're happening across multiple campuses. The other things then are the smaller ones that, I only mean smaller, not that they're less important, but just that they're differently sized, are safety and security things, so security vestibules, covered playground, play areas, our ADA accessibility upgrades and things of those nature, right? All of those things, HVAC systems, deferred maintenance, those projects can also be done. So when looking at the package, one of the reasons that you decide to hire an architecture firm to oversee the whole package is that they're able to then hire additional smaller architecture firms to take care of those other projects. One of the reasons that, so we spoke with our underwriters, and one of the reasons that we're considering selling the entire amount is that because the interest rates are so low, there's a lot more value for that dollar. And so we're able to, by looking at structuring the way the management of the bond is done through a firm that manages those multiple projects, then you can expend those dollars within the time frame necessary. So that's one of the determinations we've not finalized. And when we bring that resolution to you, we'll have the final number that we've settled on and have that discussion.
Well, one of the reasons I ask is actually when interest rates are higher, like they've normally been in my adult life, it usually pays to borrow as late as you can, because then you're not spending as much money on interest at the beginning because you have borrowed. And I was thinking about this in terms of the predicted rate that we put in the advertisements. If it did make sense, I'm not sure if it does. You're telling me a good reason why it might not. If it did make sense to stage it, then we may never hit that rate, because I'm assuming that rate was assuming we borrow it all at once at the beginning. But you're right about the interest rates, and I don't expect them to stay at their levels now forever. So that's another issue.
Right. There's another part of this during a bond sale as well, depending upon your interest rate. There are times where investors may give more cash up front for a slightly higher interest rate at the beginning, depending upon the sign. That's called a bond premium. And so you end up with more dollars to do more projects. We've talked often about the deferred maintenance and all those projects that we have, lists and lists of. And so it may behoove us, again, to sell more of them up front because the bond premium is larger than allows you to do further projects within that same scope. So that's part of the reason we've already been working with the underwriters and then going through a process of determining if that's something that we should be able to do. Yeah. Other questions?
Joe,
Mhm.
this is Rebecca. What about the 5 million from the state? Do we have to do any bond selling for that or anything for that?
So yeah, so the resolution to authorize the bond sale then also triggers us to be fully eligible for the 5 million, right? So they don't just give it to you if you've passed it. You have to go through you're authorizing and recognizing the certification of the vote. And then we go through the process with the state. The state is also far more stringent on the 3-year 80% rule. And so you often spend those 5 million first, even though when you're doing a project of this magnitude, you'll be spending those dollars easily in that amount of time. When you're doing a full school replacement or major remodels like Edwards and the high school. So yeah, but that comes after the resolution from the board. Yep, it's a great question.
Are there any other questions regarding the bond? Okay. Any last thoughts? Good.
Just there will be many opportunities. I do want to highlight that will be lots of opportunity for public engagement throughout the process. I think one of the concerns that sometimes people have are twofold. One, about the money being spent properly, and I want to remind the public and the board of the formation of the Bond Oversight Committee, which is required by law, and they do report directly to the board. So we have meetings, we go through all of our process, and so that's an avenue for lots of citizen involvement in that. And so when we get through these next few steps, we'll be putting together that group as well. And then secondly, for engagement on looking at design and looking at placement and looking at all those things as we go through some initial parts of that process, we'll have lots of time for public engagement, staff engagement, of course. When you're building, as an example, when you're building a CTE building, you don't just have some superintendent decide where he likes to put things in a building, right? You have to have staff input and public input. Of course, we've had lots of input in our development of the bond itself, but we also have industry partners who are around us who have other areas of expertise to help with that. So there'll be lots of opportunity for public engagement throughout the whole process, and I'll look forward to having people come and join us and be part of those. Whether we're still doing it in Zoom or in person, we'll see about that. But I'm sure we'll someday be back in person. There'll be plenty of opportunity. So I want people to know that we'll have both opportunity for financial oversight as well as around what's actually happening within it.
Are there board members on the Bond Oversight Committee, and how many?
They actually report to you, so you can always attend all of the meetings. We actually often would ask that you attend the meeting. I mean, it's another meeting out, of course, from your families, but if it's you would be essentially an audience member, but coming to those, we give you all the details, but it's a committee that actually reports to you on the progress of things. So coming to those meetings, you get all the details. Of course, we could give you all the documentation and what have you, but that's actually a citizen-driven committee that is then reports to the board. So the meetings themselves are where the actual interesting work happens, but you're not members yourselves.
Okay. Any other thoughts or questions? All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. More to come.
Oh, sorry. So now we'll go down to B, which is, geez Louise, which is still you.
Okay.
This in-person update, please.
It's the Joe Show today. All right. Well, this will be a relatively short update. I'm pretty sure most of you are aware that the numbers in Oregon and specifically in Yamhill County have skyrocketed. We had 184 new cases over the last 2 weeks, up from 96 per 100,000. So we're up from 96.2 per 100,000, which allowed us to do that process to move toward doing our K5 eventually. And now we're at 170.3 per 100,000. So not quite double, but pretty close. We went up from the 4.9% positivity rate to 8.4 positivity rate. I was on a call this morning. They're not super positive about the direction we're going to go for the next couple of weeks. And so that does take us out of reopening schools in person for now. I want to remind people that it's fewer than 50 cases we can open at K-12. This is per 100,000. Between 150, between 50 and 100 for K-5. We are still working on our limited in-person planning. We do want to provide that support for our students who are struggling the most, and that's K through 12. And so those are small groups, a maximum of 2 hours per day, all the health protocols followed. That's of course for, we would also include CTE, the career and technical ed at both Newberg High School and Catalyst. That planning is still underway. We don't have a start date yet. We are considering sometime after Thanksgiving. We still have quite a bit of work to do. We're concerned about the continued uptick of the cases, but we also are concerned about students who are really, really falling behind, and we want to provide some level of support for them. So schools, we have multiple teams made up of principals and staff across everything from transportation group, because as soon as we start bringing in 1 or 2 or 5 or 10, that means it's a bus route, which means it also changes all of our food delivery service. And so Shiloh Fisick, our nutrition services manager, is also part of the transportation group, as a for instance. We also have to make sure that we have the kinds of staff, and that we're not having staff do 24 different jobs. They're actually coming in. If they're doing limited in person, then we have to shift people around. And so there's quite a bit of work happening in all those. We have a group for elementary, a group for secondary, who are working on what the day would be structured like, what our process is for determining students, from an equity perspective, like who's in the most need, and we go down from there. They're using the same structures that we've used in the past for academic challenge. So at the elementary schools, the student success team, the SST, and at the high school team, it's the it's not the rescue team now, I've forgotten the name, but they also have a process for determining students who are in danger of not making progress, not graduating, struggling highly. So we're going to use the same kind of process we've used in the past to determine our most needy students and try to get them in for some limited in person. But at this point, our plans are a bit more on hold than they were last week. I'm hopeful that that will come down at some point, but we are running into colder and wetter weather and holiday season where people gather, and we're not on the governor's watch list yet for the 2-week pause, but we're not very far from that threshold. I think it's 200 and we're at 170. So we have climbed kind of toward that. Marion County, of course, Washington County, Multnomah County, and I think Clackamas County is either in or they're close as well. So lots of counties around us. We seem to have lagged a little bit, so we may be in that group a week from now. I'm not quite sure at this point, but we're hopeful that people continue to wear or start wearing masks all the time, limiting the amount of contact they have with as few people as possible. But it's a pretty significant challenge, even with the adjusted metrics that we're using now. So that's our in-person update. I think I'll pause there to see if there are further questions. Just want everybody to know that we are still working on plans. We are still trying to figure out ways to get them in, and then we'll just watch the numbers as well.
Joe, if we do hit that 2-week pause, what are the implications for our operations?
That's a great question, Brian. It's actually, it's sort of a weird thing to say. It does and it doesn't affect us, right? So it doesn't affect us because we don't follow those rules because we have rules for schools, but it does affect us because that tipping point is still the 200, which then puts us at no opportunity to bring people in, right? So we get past the other threshold. So if you were in a hybrid system, which we wouldn't be, you wouldn't even be able to start that. And so it doesn't really change what happens in schools, which makes it a bit confusing because looking at it, you say, well, it's the number is 50, like in a restaurant, right, including staff. It may change what we do for offering our facilities for after school programs. So we have to kind of worry about that. But so it's a strange sort of, it matters and it doesn't really matter to us in schools for operations, but the numbers kind of line up as far as what we could actually do. But it doesn't follow the same numbers in the restaurant and family gatherings and things like that. And I'm not exactly sure why. That's just what we've been told again today. in a meeting with the statewide administrators group.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, and not so much a question, but just a thank you. It's a good reminder for me, and I want to just call it out for everybody that, you know, it's not necessarily an all or nothing go back to school issue, that there are kind of multiple criteria and multiple stages where we can start to bring students in, start to bring in K through 5. So while everybody's holding out for the day, and I'm hoping, and I know we'll get there eventually, the day when we can all be back in school and just back the way we used to be, a more phased return is more likely. And I also just want to thank all the work you're doing, and, you know, down to our teachers and our students. You know, I can't imagine being a teacher. I don't have the skill or the temperament to be a teacher to begin with. And then to do it online, many of the students, you can't even see them, is just, it's unimaginable work that folks are out there trying to do. And I just really want to thank them, and also all the families for students trying to do the exact same thing. It's not an easy process, and it just is a good reminder why we need to be vigilant on all of our protocols and procedures until there is a widespread vaccine available.
Yeah, thank you, Bob.
Any other questions for Joe regarding school opening? I want to say thank you to Greg and Joe for the metric updates that you're sending the board. That's really helpful, so that we don't have to then go to the county health department and try to figure out where we're all at. So I really appreciate keeping us informed and in the loop on that. I agree with you, Bob. I mean, I was teaching in person, you know, is something that impresses me all the time. And then trying to do it virtually and trying to engage kids that aren't turning on their videos or, you know, for a variety of reasons. And it's very tough work. And I know that our teachers have their hearts in it. And I appreciate every attempt at connecting with these kids at this challenging time. Okay, thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
All right, let's move into our ad hoc committee updates. With the start time calendar committee, or no, I guess it's just start time now. Would the start time committee like to give us an update? Oh, you're muted, Bob.
So I was trying to find my unmute button. Brian, Rebecca, and I met about a week ago or so ago. I can't remember now. But we went through, we had gotten a list from Greg, from the union presidents, and from parent groups. We'd gotten a list of folks who were volunteering, interested in helping out with this committee. We went through those. We didn't have a real scientific process for doing it. You know, one of the things we talked about, this whole ad hoc committee approach that the board is taking, we haven't done this in anybody's memory. So a lot of this is new territory for us. So we just kind of drew names out of a hat. I'll send a full list to the board so everybody knows who's on that committee. But just kind of going through the teachers, staff, administrators, and parents. I'll just read through the names real quick. Doyle Hulsman, Megan Hewitt, Leslie Cartier, Monica Skaggs, Shyla Jasper, Cass Thonstad, Tim Graham, Scott Murphy, Brittany Magianas, Kate Teslow, Jillian DeViller, Maya Barnes, and Cherie Adkins were all selected to be on that committee. And we're going to be scheduling a meeting with all those folks as soon as possible. You know, one of the things we talked about was that the board has asked us to be on a pretty tight timeline. And, you know, we're kind of doing a gut check on, you know, whether that's, you know, something that is feasible. And that's one of the questions we'll ask that committee to help us look at is, you know, is it the best path to move forward, you know, try and get this done and in place for next year, or to hold off and do it the following school year. Again, you know, my personal opinion, I want to see it done next year, but it'll be one of the questions that we talked about that we'll need to ask to this board or to this committee. Rebecca, Brian, is there anything I'm missing that we discussed that we should pass along to the board?
I don't believe so.
Okay. All right. Well, like I said, at this point, it's the next step is just scheduling all those folks for our first meeting and getting started. So it's as I said, this is a new tool that the board is looking to use. It's one that I'm really excited about because we've put so much work the past couple of years into increasing community engagement, community involvement, and I think this is going to be an effective tool in continuing that process.
Great, thank you. I look forward to hearing an update in December, see what the committee gets done. Okay, Equity Committee. Inez graciously volunteered to give the update.
So from us, we've been making some progress. We had left a window of, I believe it was November 5th, for people to show interest via email. On the 6th, we met and discussed everybody that was interested. There's a lot of student interest, so that was really exciting to see. But because we want to keep it a small committee so that the work actually gets done, we're gonna do I don't want to call them interviews, but just check-ins with the youth to see like why are they interested in being a part of this committee, and then we'll, I guess, battle it out after that. But yeah, excited for this work to keep going. Our goal is to possibly have our committee members selected by the end of this week. So we'll see if we can meet that goal. If not, you'll hear an update at the next meeting or whenever the next one is. Anything else, Brandy and Ron?
I just want to say thank you to the many students who showed interest. I mean, we had a lot of students express interest, and like Inez said, we're trying to keep it to about 12 or 13 people, and comprised of not just students, but community members, school district employees, and of course, board members. And, you know, it'd be great to have I don't know, what are we up to? 16, 17 students now on it, but we're encouraging those students to head over to the personnel committee for the student rep position. So Bob, Rebecca, and Inez, in case you guys need another committee meeting, it would be awesome to get our student rep positions filled, because we have a lot of student interest right now, and that's awesome, and I would like to encourage it. Ron, do you have anything?
I just wanted to mention that and make it clear that we're also kind of talking to some of the adult members, both the parent community and staff, teachers. We have a few more of those that we can probably fit on, so we have to make some selections there as well. And that process is also going on this week.
Okay. Any questions for either committee?
I actually have a question on the Equity Committee. When is their report due?
The report?
Yeah, the start time report is due in January. Is there a date for the Equity Committee to report back to the board?
Well, it's going to be a little bit different because we're not initially going to be having probably action items. We're kind of waiting to see until the committee gets together to see what direction they'd like to go. But right now we're really envisioning the first, I don't know how long, I don't know what's at a time frame on it. The first part of this, once the committee is together, will really be based on creating relationships and making sure that this committee is relationally based. It's a safe place that people can be and express their experiences. And once those are developed, we'll be able to move into more action items. And that sort of structure was based on a conversation I had with the Corvallis equity director. And she shared an experience with an equity group that they have within their district that's been going now for, I think, 5 years. And it was very relationally based, and it then sprung into an action. So I don't know, Ron and Inez, if you have any ideas on timelines, but we haven't purposely set anything because the committee's not created yet.
I'm pretty sure we're not going to go 5 years before we have some recommendations, but it is a case that we may not have just one batch of recommendations. It may be some rolling out of those things as we get into our work. That's what I was thinking.
It's 8 o'clock.
And I'll just add too, unlike the start time committee, this will be an ongoing committee. I mean, maybe the start time committee will morph into a calendar review committee or, other scheduling type things. But this equity committee, I envision, I hope, remains standing for, years to come to help inform the board on equity decisions.
Well, and I was going to say, I don't know, just, one board member's opinion, but it would be good to see like a charter for the equity committee, just like, I think, Brian, I don't see where I expect them to deliver us a report the same as the start time committee is. But it would be good, I think, helpful to have, a charter saying what their purpose and role is going to be. One of the things which I've tried to be intentional about is that, this ad hoc committee for the start times, at least, that's a short-term committee that is going to go away once we've made our recommendations. That's kind of the nature of the ad hoc committees. It's not a standing committee. It just would be helpful to know from, and I don't know whether that's something you want to do at this point, or you want to bring your members in and then create a charter. But I think it would be helpful to have kind of a statement of purpose and kind of timeline and expectations so that we can, monitor how things are going.
I think that's a great idea. The committee has already sort of assumed it's going to have to operate through the end of the 21-22 year, because we're telling everybody we'd like them to make a commitment that long. So it is already in that form, kind of, we're assuming a longer term operation. And yeah, I think it's a little bit open-ended as to when we would decide it was done, if ever. The idea of a charter is a pretty good idea, and I'm sure that we'll bring that up when we can get the group entirely composed.
Yeah, I mean, this is one where, whether this committee becomes a standing committee or, there are kind of multiple ad hoc committees getting at the same thing, the work of equity is ongoing and not going to stop just because we set a deadline arbitrarily for ourselves.
One I was gonna share along those lines is equity work takes a long time to take in and make change, and change isn't always accepted. I remember being in school and coming before the school board at the time, when we were asking, okay, if all means all in your information for the district, why doesn't it show that way? And so that conversation started when I was in school, which is almost 10 years ago. So it takes time because clearly equity is not accepted fully yet. So.
Any other questions for either committee? Okay, awesome. Good work. Okay, next up under new business, we have the OSB conference planning. So it's going to be obviously virtual this year, and they have a platform called Pathables in which board members or attendees can sign up for various sessions. And in our agenda planning discussion, we talked a little bit about wanting to kind of have a conversation amongst board members to kind of see where people were in which sessions they were hoping to attend, because ideally we would have several members attending several different sessions. So hopefully everyone got a chance to look at that. I know Rebecca had some technical issues, so I can follow up with you on that, Rebecca, if you'd like to chat about that tomorrow. But does anybody have ideas of which sessions they're attending at this point?
I do. I'm pulling up my schedule
Sure,
for it. So give me a second.
Pull up the virtual annual convention.
Yeah, and unfortunately,
I
was gonna say, unfortunately, I was not able to get time off. So I work Friday and Saturday. So I'll be probably not able to attend any of those sessions.
Yeah, that's understandable. We'll give you an update. Dave, I see you're unmuted. Would you like to tell us which sessions you're interested in?
Yeah, I got 8 to 8:45, it was with Oregon Department of Ed, the question and answer one. 10:50 to 11:35, the role of the school member in the rollout bill 284. 105, I guess we're in the Polk County one, I'm assuming. 22307, executive mission for the 90-day cycle for the rollout. Then there's a closing session, so that was mine.
What was the 220 can you say that one again?
It's executive mission, your district's 90-day plan to cycle through.
Okay. I was also going to go to that same morning one, but let's see what everybody else is doing because maybe I'll change mine up if we already have somebody there.
I'm having technical issues. It won't let me sign in. So
Okay.
I don't remember.
Well, Brandy, I think you're already going to one at 8 o'clock, aren't you? There's somebody
Yeah,
leading
I have,
19 sessions for the mid-sized school district. That's you, isn't it?
Yeah. That's me. So I'll be in that one. And then of course at the roundtable one, facilitating those 2 sessions. But
I'll go to the board officers one then, since you're busy at 8 o'clock.
that would be great.
And as to the next one is that where we have some choices at 10:50, and oh crumb, it won't scroll. Hang on a second. I think it'd be the successful superintendents, successful school boards, but it's not responding. I guess we're all on there and we've overloaded their website. So yeah, that one, and then in the latter one at 2:20, the collaborative governance one looks good to me.
Okay. Okay. I was going to do the role of the school board members and the rollout of Bill 2845, but I'll look and see what else is available since Dave will be in that one. At 2:20, I was going to go to exploring ways to increase community engagement. Brian, are you able to pull up which sessions you've signed up for?
I have a conflict that day, so I'm not going to be able to attend.
Okay. And Renault, okay. So maybe Rebecca and Inez, when you guys get access to it, maybe just email me which one you're thinking about. You've heard what everybody else is doing, so that'll help shape it. I think maybe 5 or 6 options for the sessions. I don't remember how many, but there's several, so hopefully we can avoid an overlap. Any other thoughts or questions around that?
And if they want to really go to one of the ones I mentioned, I can be flexible too.
Yeah.
Do we know if the sessions are going to be recorded?
Good question. I wouldn't see why not. So I don't know, but I don't know.
I don't know though. The only thing that makes me think maybe not would be because you have to pay to attend, but that's just a guess. That's my only thought of maybe why not, but I hope they do because they're generally.
Yeah, but we're paying $50 for the whole day. So it's not like there's a huge amount of revenue there. By the way, I'm not quite clear. I can't quite tell if I've registered or not. I'm not getting feedback from them. And Greg, did you register us or what are we doing on that?
I did. I registered everybody with your school board email address that they have on file. So
but you didn't give us passwords. That's where I'm having my problem.
No, they switched to a new system. It took me 4 weeks to get it to actually work and show up so that I could register you.
Sorry.
And I don't know how they set up their system on your end for how your account or your password works. So you'd have to contact them directly. I apologize.
Yeah, I'll have to do that, I think.
Yeah, I think that was the problem, that I was still on the old system and I couldn't access what I had picked.
Yeah,
I mean,
I would read that.
Hopefully you could send an email or send a forgot password or something. I know they have all of your board email addresses correctly. I did check that. So
Thank you, Greg.
Not that you want to hear these details, but I tried with our password, it didn't work. I tried it with no password and they wouldn't even listen to me because I have to have a password to get a password. And since I don't think I don't know I don't know how to get it now. So I'll call them. That's probably what's going to have to happen.
Just if you're looking for your email, you're actually not looking for OSBA. You're looking for something called Pathable. That's a PATHABLE. So it actually came from something called, and then it'll be a sign-in link. They give you a magic sign-in link. So if you're looking for something called Pathable, and that will say OSBA annual convention. I think that's the brand that they're using now. Rather than the former one.
Yeah, if you're still having technical difficulties with it.
I found a reference to Pathable and it gives me a place to try. Thank you. I won't try it right now. We're busy.
Okay.
Perfect. And if you're still having problems, definitely reach out because Saturday is going to be here before we know it. Okay, any other thoughts or questions around the annual convention? No? Okay. Next up on our agenda is an item for Ron regarding the OSBA elections.
Okay, so we this is our chance as a board to vote on a couple of things. One of them is the on a representative to the OSBA board from Zone 13. Somebody named Brandy Penner has been doing that, been the incumbent, and she's up for re-election. And I don't know if you remember, but a couple of years ago, she started on a long campaign speech and we just cut her off and voted. This gives us a chance to be a little more gracious. Do you have something you want to say, Brandy?
Well, I've prepared a few pages here. No, I'm kidding. No, just that, you know, it's another volunteer position, which is a little daunting, but I have really enjoyed my service to OSBA, and especially having a more state perspective on things and connecting with board members around the state. I mean, it's very common for me to reach out to a different board member in a different district to say, hey, what did you do about this? Or do you know anybody who could connect me with this? So I think it also really helps serve our board and community as well. And I really enjoyed getting to know the folks in Polk and Yamhill County. It's a pretty diverse region. I mean, I think the smallest district is 300 kids in Perrydale, and the biggest is McMinnville. So it's a pretty big span, and the issues are wide ranging, and it's been really interesting. So that's why I said, okay, I'll do it again. And the only reason I've had to be elected so many times is I took over somebody's position partway through their term. And so now it's getting the position back on the election cycle. Hopefully you won't need to do this again for a couple of years. And also it's great having Rebecca on the Legislative Policy Committee as well. So we get to see each other sometimes outside of Newberg when we meet in person, which is great too.
So does anybody have any questions?
No, I was going to say, I agree. I think it's super helpful having that involvement at that level. It just brings in more that networking and more information. And so I would like to move that the Newberg School District Board of Directors approve voting in favor of Brandy Penner to serve as a representative from Zone 13 to the OSBA Board of Directors.
I second it.
Okay, with a motion and a second, is there any discussion? No, seeing none. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. All those opposed? Okay, passes 6-1. Brian opposed.
We also then need to discuss the legislative priorities and principles. And so if you've looked at that, there's a couple of pages there that are a little bit kind of cover, well, there's one page that sort of talks about it in general principles, and there's another 2 pages that talk about a little bit more specifics about what the OSBA proposes to do. What they want from the different school districts is to have as many as possible voting to endorse the program. It's been adopted by people who are representing us by region, not each individual district. We're just the lucky one to have one actually there. And what we've done in the past is generally gone ahead and endorsed it, but we've also had the opportunity to discuss it. So if we have any discussion, we should do that now.
This is the committee that also proposed or worked hard on the legislature to get the SSA funding passed. And so it's a continuation. It's a springboard for the legislature's advocacy group of OSBA of what OSBA wants them to work on. So this is the priority and the principles they're going to be working on for the next 2 years.
And both Rebecca and I can kind of speak a little bit to the process too. There were several meetings, even one, was that December?
January of this year, and
Yeah.
May and June.
Yeah, and the last two were virtual, obviously, but and this is, so the OSBA Board of Directors, which is, I think, 22 members, plus the Legislative Policy Committee, which is another, I'm going to guess 20 to 25 people. So there was a lot of us in the room and a lot of facilitated conversation around developing these goals, just so you all know the process a little bit. Are there any questions or discussion around this? No? All right, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move that the Newberg School District Board of Directors vote to adopt Resolution 1, OSBA Legislative Priorities and Principles.
I'll second.
Okay, with a motion and a second, any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Right, passes 6-1. Brian is opposed. We are done 14 minutes early. Okay, so coming up agendas, we are, especially the December 8th meeting is going to be a pretty long one, potentially, but it's our only meeting in December. So we're comfortable elastic pants to that one, I guess. I don't know. How do you get comfortable for an at-home meeting, right? But next meeting, which will be the 24th, we'll have our monthly financial report from Nikki. Greg, is the student achievement report starred for a reason?
That kind of comes over for last year of things that were requested by the board for their board discussion topics. So that was just a carryover. And I would I would add as well that I finally heard back from the city today, and they will be giving their presentation at the November 24th one.
Perfect. Okay. We'll start our discussion around the budget process calendar. I would encourage all board members to reach out to their budget committee representative just to check in, see if they have any questions and if they're interested in serving again. And then discuss student and athletic fees, and then we'll reflect on our OSBA convention. All right. Good meeting, everyone. Oh, and I have the gavel back. This is exciting. So I'll try not to lose it before we go back in person. I'm taking very good care of it. The children try to play with it. I let them know they had to be an elected official to handle it. So thank you. I'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 8:18. Everybody have a good night.